our presentation. Awesome. We're going to move on to our presentation today. So just a reminder to keep yourself on mute, and that limits the background noise. Today's webinar is being recorded and it will be shared with you afterwards. So you can share it with others as well. And so today, our speaker, I have the pleasure of introducing Rebecca Boswell. As a growth mindset transformation coach, Rebecca facilitates outcomes through insights so you can actualize your vision with confidence and courage. A lifelong learner, she holds an MA in cultural anthropology from Boston University and an MBA in management organizational behavior from the State University of New York in Albany. She earned her executive leadership coaching certification through Columbia University and her professional coaching certification through the International Coaching Federation. She holds a certification in holistic health counseling from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, holistic health practitioner certification through the American Association of Drugless Practitioners, and studied coach approach leadership and play-based models of coaching through the Coachville Center for Coaching Mastery. So she wasn't kidding when she said lifelong learner. Lots of learning. Oh my goodness, it's so awesome. Rebecca has taught in various institutions in the field of business, communications, and anthropology, worked in sales and marketing, and has run her own coaching practice for the past 14 plus years. Coach Rebecca supports and facilitates her clients in the co-creation of greater meaning and fulfillment in all aspects of personal and professional life through a growth mindset and through mindfulness. So we are just so honored today to have Rebecca here to share all of this beautiful knowledge today focused around this growth mindset. So without further ado, Rebecca, welcome.
Wow. Thank you for that introduction. That was a mouthful. And, all I want to say really is that I just am a human being on the planet that has always been so curious about who are we and why do we do the things we do? And, how can I get to know myself better? And so all of those things, it's really just part of the exploration and the journey. So thanks for having me here. I'm so excited to be here with all of you beautiful women. And mindfulness, growth mindset, they have both been very instrumental, not only in my own personal growth journey, but now it's what I also use in my practice. When you said 14 plus years, I kind of had a little hitch there because I've been saying over 10 years for so long and doing the math. Yeah, I'm probably about 6 months away from the 15-year mark. So I'm going to have to change the numbers in my head. A little personal information about me. I've been married for 21 years. That in and of itself is a growth journey. It's been all to the same man, which is amazing. I'm still awaiting my trophy in the mail. Hasn't come yet. We have two beautiful children. Our daughter is a junior in high school. Our son is in 8th grade and middle school. And then we have 4 babies, and they just bring so much to our lives. And professionally, I've been at this for a while. And today, what I really want to do is just help each of us in the room start to see a little bit more about maybe what the growth mindset is, start to pick out where you are already being a growth oriented thinker, and, kind of get the idea of what that journey of becoming looks like, so that if you'd like to play more in that space, you can. So I'm going to put on the slides here. Let's see where we are, and we will get started. All right, so let's see. Okay. All right. So we're going to start maybe a little counterintuitively. Instead of diving right into what is a growth mindset, I want to actually start with what lives on the other side of the spectrum, which is the fixed mindset. And I do this because if we were to have a mindset setting, like a switch that toggled back and forth, and we could only choose one or the other, what I have found is that out in the world, we can find a lot of default setting over on the fixed mindset side. There are a lot of reasons, and we'll go into some of that. But basically, a fixed mindset is when you have a set of beliefs that assume that all of your abilities, your characteristics, everything that you are and what you're capable of is kind of static and fixed, and then most importantly, unchangeable, right? So this is sort of that, well, it is what it is perspective, period. If we're listening for indications of a fixed mindset, either from within ourselves or with the people that we're speaking with, you might hear things like, I can't do that. I've never been able to, or, I'm not creative, or, I could never dance. I have 2 left feet, things that kind of indicate that something is the way it is. And, oh, well, that's my fate. Okay. Unfortunately, when we live in the space of a fixed mindset, while it may serve the function of keeping us safe within a box that we can control, it limits the experiences and the quality of experiences that we can have in our lives, and can also limit our personal and professional success, what is available to us. If we believe that we can't, then we don't, right? So that's kind of what we're up against, right? So recognizing where we let's see, here we go. Oh, there we go. Recognizing where some of this is showing up for us personally can be really, really helpful as we start to shift and flip that switch to the other side. Now, the idea of a switch is really easy to use in a conversation, but unfortunately, we can't just flip a switch, okay? It's a process. So you don't just wake up one day and become the butterfly. Growth is a process, right? Like that would be flipping the switch from one day to the next. But the becoming part is where all the magic is. And that is the actual journey. And so when we start to shift into a growth mindset and we go on this growth journey, that's when we start to realize that the world is actually opening up to us internally and externally. So, okay, well then what is it? Finally, this is where we come from the assumption that our traits, our abilities, our intelligence can actually be improved over time. Okay, so that's where we look to, engage in learning. That's where we practice new skills, new habits, new behaviors, new ways of thinking, and where we have perseverance. So sort of the formula of growth is effort over time, right? As opposed to the fixed, which would say, well, it doesn't matter what I do. It's not going to change anything. One of the poll questions was, I believe that I'm not a victim, right? And so growth mindset is really one of those tools that helps us outside of a victim mindset, because the victim mindset is very rooted in the fixed mindset, because it's saying, here I am, woe is me, this is my fate, and I can do nothing about it. So this is a very empowering way to start shifting the way we look at the world. So where does this come from? Well, there have certainly been elements of fixed and growth mindset throughout the history of having minds, right? However, it started to become something that we talk about more frequently in the 1990s. So Carol Dweck, she is the researcher and professor. She's at Stanford. She's the one who coined the terms and who really has been instrumental in bringing these terms, these concepts into conversations. In her process of researching success, she was really interested to see, like, okay, so how does what we believe affect the outcome or the achievements that we experience. And she did a lot of work with students and really found that the students who believed that they could get better really did get better. And the students that believed that they couldn't didn't. And so there's a lot of growth mindset in the academic world that's been just readily adopted, and now we can start to see it coming also into popular culture and also more into the business world. And I use it a lot with clients, and it offers when we make this shift, it offers so much more personal freedom. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy, but it is something that offers us the ability to open everything up to us. So, I have to say, I did not set my timer. I am so sorry. But I want to do our first breakout here. So we are going to do a quick breakout where I want you guys to just start seeing how this applies to you. Okay, so where do you sit in this space of fixed and growth mindset? This is a non-judgmental space. So we are, I have a background in anthropology. So as the anthropologist, we practice objectivity, which means that we try to go in and just see, okay, so what is here? And then we look at, okay, what can we learn from it? So that's what we're going to do here is we're going to go and not judge what we notice, but just see what's there so that we can have more of that self-awareness. So what I'd like you guys to discuss, I think you'll be in groups of, I'm not sure how it works out now with the numbers, but maybe 3 if that works. And you're going to have 9 minutes. So, be mindful of the time so that everybody can have an opportunity to share. But I want you to think about, okay, do I believe that my abilities can improve with effort over time? Where do I sit there? Do I believe maybe in some areas, yes, maybe in some areas, no? How well do you avoid, or do you tend to avoid or embrace challenges? So if there's a roadblock or a perceived barrier, or something that comes up that presents friction, what is your response to that? Do you tend to lean into it, or do you notice yourself kind of leaning back? And are there any particular areas where you might notice more or less of the fixed or growth mindset? Okay, so does anybody, actually, here we go. Does anybody have any questions about that before we go? I don't see any. Okay, great. So are we good to send everybody off into a breakout to share with each other?
Yes, and the questions are in the chat. You should be able to access that in the breakout rooms. Okay.
Excellent. And so you have 9 minutes, and then we'll come back and then we'll go a little bit deeper. All right. And now, is it just the 2 of us in here?
Yes.
Okay, I see. So yeah, I can't really see. I think I can change the view here so I can see people a little bit better. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, so I set my timer and I'll close the rooms and then they'll have 30 minutes or 30 seconds to come back. I think there was one person who didn't join the breakout room. Let me check here.
Okay.
Oh, no, everybody got there now. So a couple breakout rooms have 2 people because I didn't want to put 4 in there.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And then I forgot to hit start on my first timer. So do you know what time we started or what?
Yeah, it was about 13 minutes after, so I would say you're right on schedule.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good. I had it all queued up and then forgot to press that.
That happens. I understand. Oh, I'm gonna. Okay, they all should be back now. I think everyone's back. Rebecca, do you want to?
I just closed this. Okay, perfect. Excellent. So hopefully that was enlightening and also a little enjoyable, hopefully at least a little. So what was that experience like for you? So if you're willing and interested, you can pop into the chat any takeaways or anything that you noticed in that exchange with one another, anything that you noticed about yourself. You can feel free to put that in there. And okay, oops. All right, because you see my screen. Wait, what's happening? Okay. All right. So growth mindset, but why is it so important, right? So now you know, you're starting to identify, okay, where you might already be enjoying a bit of a growth mindset or not, but like, why bother, right? Well, if we kind of zoom out and we kind of look from a broader perspective, some of the broader brush strokes, it really boils down to quality of life, at least from my point of view. When we start to open our minds, right? The growth mindset is really about an opened mind, expanding yourself and the world, you know, what's possible for you in the world around you. You start to notice, right? There's an increased sense of optimism, of positivity, of hope, right? There's hope when we have a sense that there can be change. Growth is inherently change. There's possibility, and there's also a sense of bravery. So the more that we lean in and demonstrate to ourselves this bravery, it builds our confidence, and it sort of keeps feeding all of these really positive elements until they get stronger and stronger. As we have more evidence for what we are capable of, right? The change that is possible, the growth that we're capable of, we start to also reduce our sense of fear of the unknown, right? When we are afraid of the unknown because we're not sure if we can handle whatever might come, we try to control everything around us, the people around us, we try to control ourselves as a way to try to stay safe, right? But our world gets smaller and smaller when we're in that place. So as we start to lean into that growth mindset, our fear of the unknown diminishes because we start to have more enthusiasm for what could be possible, right? It's like seeing life not as a hassle or something to get through, but instead seeing life as an adventure, something that you get to experience, that you get to be a part of, right? Suddenly life is not happening to you. You are co-creating with your life and all the life that is occurring around you. So when you start to be this kind of broader, expanded person, you start to notice ripple effects, right? The relationships that you have with yourself and with those around you, they start to change. Some may fall away, some may not get better, some may fall away. And those that maybe weren't available to you before, that are a greater contribution to you, that are more in alignment with who and what you are wanting to be in the world, will start to be attracted. And so overall, that leads to enhanced fulfillment, better quality of life, and proactive success, right? You're empowered to have agency and an active hand in the life that you're creating. So a big piece here too is that when we are in a fixed mindset, lots of times there's a real strong delineation between good and bad, right and wrong. And our self-worth is based on whether we were successful or not, right? So I'm a success, I'm a failure. And we put it on ourselves. And it becomes, you know, how we perceive the quality of who we are and what we are. Whereas when we shift into this growth mindset, we are actually not looking at how can we fix deficits, but instead looking at how we can live more fully, how we can add more, how we can self-actualize to a greater degree, how we can see how deep that well of potential actually is. And so you create this natural pull forward as opposed to being stuck in a place where you are feeling resistant and wanting to avoid whatever comes next. So let's to really look, instead of saying like, these are all the things that you need to do to have a growth mindset. Instead, I was thinking, let's look at it in terms of the you that is becoming one who lives with a growth mindset. So in this becoming, these are like the qualities that you can start to notice, practice, engage in, because this sort of creates the profile of somebody who is actualized in this area, okay? The number one thing, the biggest thing that really trickles into everything else is just that belief that change and growth is possible. Without that, we don't even leave the house, right? So that's the first thing. So we can ask ourselves, how am I approaching this situation, especially if it's a sticky situation and you're experiencing some friction? Am I functioning from a place of what is, or am I functioning from a place of what else is possible, right? And those are two really powerful questions that you can ask yourself. Am I functioning from what is, or what else is possible? The kids always had teachers that would say, you get what you get and you don't get upset. Or my son corrected me and said, no, Mom, now that we live in Texas, it's you get what you get and you don't get upset. So, the difference here is recognizing, yes, let's see what is. That's great. That's powerful. That's being in the presence, in the now. That's where all the magic is. But then also getting curious. How can we move beyond it? What else can we notice here? What other perspectives are available, right? So we practice that curiosity. We start to get more flexible, right? We start to adapt more. We have resilience when we get knocked down, right? Or we perceive a setback. We're willing to get back up and keep going because we know that we are actually in a positive container, right? That our intention is set to embrace the challenge, right? When something shows up, it's an opportunity. It's not a threat, right? If there's a stumbling block, it's just an indicator that, hey, you get to learn something new here. Hey, you get to explore something that maybe you've never faced before. And, you may develop a skill internally. You may find that you have to grow in your network to find resources that you require, or maybe it's about deepening different relationships with others who you can collaborate with, right? And so as it becomes this lifelong learning, you really see yourself on this journey instead of trying to get to a certain place where all of a sudden everything will be okay. So it opens the timeline, right? And it deepens and enriches the experience. So part of this is recognizing that it's not always going to be easy, right? And yet, depending on how you approach it with your thinking, it will determine how much ease you have along the way. So valuing that effort and knowing that it is bearing results, even if it's maybe not showing fruit as quickly as you might like, right? practicing compassion for yourself and others, JFA all the way. That's one of my favorite things in the world, judgment-free awareness. It is a daily moment-to-moment practice, at least for me. And it's something that is a huge part of this experience, because if you are starting to have more self-awareness, if you're starting to see, oh, okay, these are areas where I can still grow and develop, right? Instead of seeing it as a deficit, like we said before, you see it as an opportunity. And so instead of judging it, you're able to celebrate it. Okay. And part of that is cultivating that self-compassion and empathy. When we are able to do that, right, then we are able to actively seek out feedback and collaborate with others, because all of a sudden we don't have to get defensive about it. Again, we're not looking at a deficit. We're looking at wanting to know, right? Like at the end of this, I'm going to have a feedback form. I want to know what worked for you today. I want to know what didn't work. I want to know what was of value, what wasn't, because what's the point of me engaging with you if I'm sharing things that aren't of interest, aren't relevant, aren't of value? So why would I want to keep doing that again and again? Instead, I would rather know about your experience and start incorporating that into what I do next, right? Growing, learning, developing so that I can be of greater service to myself and those around me. All right. So we can celebrate others as well, right? Because all of a sudden, success is not a limited resource. My success does not limit your capacity for success, and vice versa. So the more that I look at your success, I can be inspired. I can say, wow, look at what Myrna did. If she can do that, I wonder what I can do. Right. And so we use that as fuel forward instead of using it as a way to batter ourselves, because that doesn't really serve us at all. And in this whole process, again, right, we're looking at someone who's demonstrating a growth mindset, and we notice their ability to express greater agency, their willingness to choose more frequently, to express out in the world with more confidence, but not because they know that they're always going to be right or that they're on the right track, but because they know that whatever comes next, they'll be able to handle it. Okay. So how you approach life has a direct influence on how you experience life. Practical tips: get curious, right? So it's like, how do we become that, that profile? How do we start to get in there? Well, the big thing is getting curious, right? Getting curious about yourself, getting curious about the world around you, excuse me. And then of course, leaning into those challenges, uncertainty, adversity and new territories as a way of having an adventure of life instead of being in fear of what all might go wrong. Okay, so a couple of things that you can think of in terms of the languaging internally and externally. I noted some of the fixed mindset languaging earlier on. This is some languaging that you can look out for, and you can also start to practice. So when you hear yourself using fixed mindset languaging, you can say, oh, okay, interesting. If I was choosing a growth mindset, how else could I speak it, right? Because what we speak out is a reflection in our external environment of our internal environment. So I'm on a learning journey. Own it, acknowledge it, celebrate it, share it. Yet is my most favorite tool, because it could be that you can't. It could be, I can't, I can't make a creme brulee. That may be a fact. Okay. But with a growth mindset, we say, yes, I can't make a creme brulee yet. So now we're opening up the door to say, okay, and if I'd like to, all right, what's available to me? What can I explore? How can I actually learn that skill if I want to, right? Again, there's that choice, but the agency piece is giving yourself the choice of whether or not you want to go on this particular side trail of growth. I can learn this. I'll give this my best. Your best may change from day to day, but being intentional with how you're showing up, what you're showing up with, and knowing that you're putting whatever you have on the table, and that's going to change from day to day. That is, that is going to be another way that you can lean into this. Making mistakes, right? There are no mistakes as long as you learn from it, right? Everything is an experience. A mistake is only something that you've experienced and then decided was the end of the road. Once you are learning from it, well, now it's a gift. You've transformed the energy of that from mistake to a lesson learned. Okay. With mistakes and failure, right? I mentioned earlier about how, we're shifting from how to like continuous learning, continuous improvement from the idea of like fixing a deficit. And so, lots of times with mistakes or perceived failure, we take that as evidence for incompetence, right? And so now instead of saying, oh, we're incompetent and making that the all or nothing, saying, oh, wow, okay, I just learned that there's more here that I can explore. And celebrate along the way. If you're waiting to get to a final destination, it's all a grind. If you can celebrate day to day, okay, you know what? Today, I showed up a little greater than yesterday, even if it's just by 1 degree, right? That over time has such an amazing impact. So we have your next shared experience. And so you're going to go into your breakouts again. And this time, I'd like you to look back over the last week and see if you can identify a situation in which you may have demonstrated or witnessed a fixed mindset. And then using what we've talked about today so far, I'd like you to see, okay, if I were to go press the rewind button and replay that situation, but this time through the lens of a growth mindset, how might either I have approached it differently, or if you're thinking of a situation that happened with someone else, how might they have approached it in a growth mindset type of capacity? Okay. So Myrna, if you want to put everyone in their groups, and we'll see how we can start shifting the way we look at situations.
Okay. I'm opening the rooms. You have 9 minutes again, so divide it amongst those in your room.
How was that experience? You can pop it in the chat over while you guys were engaging with each other. I went back and I was able to spend a little more time reading through all your responses from the last breakout, and just some really beautiful responses. And so thank you for sharing. And hopefully you'll put your responses in from this breakout as well. All right, so moving on. What's next? We have a sense of what the profile of an individual looks like who is practicing a growth mindset, right? We have some sense of what areas we can lean into in our becoming on this journey of adopting the growth mindset. So what next? Well, a key piece here is identifying growth opportunities. So when we are lifelong learners, then what is it that we're going to learn next? Oftentimes life will present us with opportunities. We don't always have to go looking for that growth. And so basically any opportunity where you have a desire for something, but you notice that there's some sort of resistance, right? That's a growth opportunity, because the growth is what's going to actually bridge the gap into whatever's required next to fulfill and actualize that growth process. So it's something that's asking you to go beyond your comfort zone and experience something new. So whatever, whatever the box is that we've created, or whatever that comfort zone is, it's going to be stretching the boundaries of that. All right, so why do we sometimes shy away from these growth opportunities, right? If we're using a fixed mindset, we don't see them as growth opportunities at all. We see them as inconveniences. We see them as scary things. We see them as, obstacles that need to be dealt with, right? So when we start to look at them, however, from this other perspective, then we're looking at, oh my gosh, I didn't hit the start again. Myrna, can you just let me know when we're getting to the end, when I need to get to the next breakout? Because for some reason I'm not learning that. Okay. So change inherently requires new territories. New territories are inherently uncertain because we don't have any experience there yet. Or maybe we have some experience, but we don't have enough to know what the outcome will be. Okay. So then what happens? We perceive fear. We perceive wanting to preserve what we have or protect ourselves from either fears that we have that are just of the unknown in general, or based in some sort of experience that we've had in the past that we don't want to relive again. Okay. And that's what'll keep us playing safe, even if playing safe is not resulting in the outcomes that we actually want to be experiencing and living. So it seems like a growth mindset is a great idea and something to just dive into. And, okay, so maybe it takes a little bit of practice, but why isn't everybody adopting it? Well, first of all, you have to be aware that something exists in order to make the choice as to whether you want to play with it or not. Okay. We're also dealing with deep-seated beliefs. I mean, we have conditioning from day one that teaches us how to be appropriate within the circles that we navigate throughout the course of our life. And if we have had experiences in which we have been vulnerable, or we have asserted ourselves in certain ways and it didn't go well, then we can learn, right? We can learn, okay, I don't ever want to do that again. So we really need to be mindful with the learning that we're doing and keep checking in. Okay, what is our intention here? And is what I have, what is the interpretation of my experience actually the learning that's of value to me? Or is there an opportunity here to question the assumptions, the beliefs, the things that I'm functioning from in order to have a different outcome? And the more that whatever we keep practicing gets reinforced and gets bigger, right? So the question is, what do we want to be reinforcing? So you have to be aware of what's already there to see if you are going to choose something different. If you're expecting instant gratification, this is not for you, right? Because this is effort over time. It requires effort over time, and it's not going to necessarily show all the results overnight. So you got to keep going. Also, if you are needing external validation, right? A growth mindset might be a really difficult thing to lean into because you may not always get it right, right? I'm a recovering perfectionist, and, it really stemmed from wanting to make sure that all the people around me were happy, that everybody was getting what they needed, that I was, doing a great job at all times, at all costs. All right. And sometimes when we're on the growth journey, our learning doesn't result in what other people want to see all the time, because it's not about them. It's about your learning, your development. You may outgrow them. You may grow in a different direction. You may grow and have have experiences that don't go the way you had hoped, and other people may not understand that. And another piece is overemphasis on talent, right? If you have a lot of talent in something, and then all of a sudden the talent piece caps, but you've not learned to work hard, right? Or put your energy and your effort in, then you might say, oh, I'm capped out, I'm done. As opposed to recognizing, okay, that the effort is really important. So if we know what to look for, then we can see it, and then we can make those changes. Okay, so we don't need to do that. Okay, so our next steps, some ideas, what you can do to help practice this, and some of the things that we talked about today is keeping a mindset journal, trying new things on a regular basis, no matter how big or small. Just do something different. Your brain is going to have to rewire. You're going to have to adjust to that uncertainty of whatever it is, and it will help to reinforce the benefits for you of the growth mindset. Using SMART goals, making sure they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely, and then setting your default to continuous learning, knowing that every experience has value. It all has value. That is going to be huge, and helping and recruiting other people on your journey so that you're not going it alone. That's going to also be really helpful to have allies on your journey. So, okay. So for the last piece, I want you to kind of take this and have some next steps for how you can use this in your life right now. So I'd like you to think of an area where you would love to do or be something, or maybe you have an idea to create something or try something new, or take a leap in some direction, but you've been dragging your feet. Okay. So if you look at it now as a growth opportunity, okay, in what ways is this thing asking you to grow, right? And to be brave and to learn something new, maybe up level some area of your skills, or just how you're thinking about it. So if you couldn't fail, only grow, which is actually the truth, what would you choose? Okay, so that's what you guys are going to discuss, and we'll see you at the end of this breakout. And this breakout is a little bit shorter, so it doesn't have to be a perfect answer. You don't have to get it all out, but just start getting a loose framework of it out, spoken into the world.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. All right, so you've had 3 shared experiences with your group mates. Hopefully you've heard some things today that you haven't heard before. And at the very least, we're reminded of some things that maybe you have heard before, but now are top of mind, or maybe you've heard some things that you had heard before, but now you've heard it in a different way, and so you can integrate it in a different way. So what I'd love is for you to share in the chat this time anything specific that you want to share from this last breakout, but then also in general. What are your general overarching takeaways from today? What do you feel was most valuable to you? And then also, were there any similarities that you saw, that you noticed when you were having these shared experiences? What did you notice between yourself and your group mates that was similar? It's kind of, if we're going to go on a growth journey, that is not always an easy task, knowing that we're in good company and that maybe this is actually part of the shared human experience, it can give us a little bit more of a boost on our path. And then what's one thing that you want to take away from here and share with someone in your life that you care about that was not in the presentation? So how can you take something from today and ripple it out into the world in some way? So that brings us to the end of the formal presentation. My website is RebeccaBoswell.com. And if you want to schedule a time to connect and talk about this more, please feel free to do so. I would love to connect with you. And then if you go to the top link there, the feedback form link, then it just asks a few questions there. And that, of course, helps me to continue on my growth journey. And who knows, if I come back and speak with you again at some point, then I know that I can add even more value to the experience. Also, anybody who fills out the feedback form, I will send you a little PDF cheat sheet, basically just highlighting a couple of key points from our discussion today. So hopefully that will be a valuable little tool for you that will help keep some of this top of mind. So remember, if you want to be and do something that you have never been and done before, then it's time to think like you've never thought before. So remember, what is going on inside is going to be reflected on the outside through our actions, our words, and how we show up. So I think that is it for the formal part of the presentation. And I think there's a little bit of time for Q&A. And also I will be looking through more of the chat again later. So the Q&A. So now if you do have any specific questions, then you can put those in the chat, and I'm happy to explore any little side trails with you that popped up during today's discussion. This is awesome. I really appreciate actually all the shares in the chat, being able to go back and look. I can really see that you guys showed up today and really dove in, and, you know, vulnerability is a huge part of practicing a growth mindset, right? Because if you're going into new territories, you don't know always what to expect, right? But what we do is we start to create more space for playing and not taking things quite so seriously, right? We can let up on the reins a little, and so awesome. Yes. Yes. Here's the thing, I can spew all kinds of factoids and lists at you, but if you are able to connect with another person in their journey, wherever they are, we get to express our internal self with another, but then also we get to see ourselves reflected in the other person as well as they're sharing, right? So if we're going to be sharing this planet with other people, then, you know, wouldn't it be amazing, right? This group is about creating greater peace, right? And how can we show up and create greater peace outside in the world if we can't put energy and intention into creating peace in our internal environment? And so the more that we can trust that peace that we're creating within, that willingness to open and expand and engage, you know, the more that we can create that outside and inspire it in others as well. So what do you recommend? Is there a block to a particular learning or challenge? Some core okay, so if there's a core or limiting belief, yes. So again, everything in my world is a process from my point of view. So yeah, when we have a sticking point, when there is friction, right? it's not for nothing. Like there is something in your world, in your experience, in your mindset, in just the space of you being you, that is causing that friction, right? So you have this desire, and I always think of it as like two locomotives, like a train that has two locomotives. So you have one that's going this way, and you have one that's going this way. And this locomotive is, well, actually, this locomotive is going in the direction of what you desire, what you want to become, what you want to create, who you want to be, all those things. And this locomotive is, let's stay safe, let's stay within the comfort zone, don't stick your neck out, all that stuff. So if both locomotives are going full bore in the opposite direction, you don't go anywhere fast, right? And so then the question is, okay, let's see this locomotive that wants to keep us safe. People talk about self-sabotage. I don't believe in self-sabotage. I believe in preservation and protection, right? So there is a very good reason. There is value to you and your sense of safety for whatever that friction is, whatever the reasons underneath are. And so if you can start to engage with a coach, with a trusted advisor, with, if you have, great friends that are able to go deep, obviously, I think a coach is a great ally for this, especially if they're trained in it, like I am, and also other people, other coaches in the group. You can really look at, okay, what is underneath that's holding that belief in place, that's keeping the locomotive full bore. Because if you can release this, let parts of that go, then you're free to go in the direction that you choose. And again, that's a process of self-discovery and repatterning in order to let go of beliefs and habits, behaviors that maybe once served you well or served you in some capacity, but that maybe are not serving you and what you are desiring for yourself today. Let's see, does that bring up any additional questions? Or is there anything else that I can share with you, or just all I can do is offer my perspective on it. But I love doing that. Good. Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed the breakouts and that was of value to you. Maybe if you're willing and able, if you have someone that you think you might share something with from the presentation, if you want to pop in the chat who you think you might share something with and maybe what you're going to share. I'd love to just kind of see, get a sense of what the ripples are that are going to be floating out of this over the next several hours, days, weeks, months, years, who knows? I will say, while you guys are thinking about that and for the chat, I will say, the human journey is not for the faint of heart, right? And so the growth journey and the human journey, I really think are kind of one and the same, right? And we talked about the default setting of fixed and growth mindset, and it doesn't really work like that. But while it may be because of this preservation and protection piece that we talked about, that we kind of are, that switch, if there were one, gets maybe more easily set to the fixed default. What's interesting is that I think actually the growth default is our natural setting. So if we could press the reset and get back to actually our natural disposition, it would be more in this space of play, discovery, exploration, collaboration, right? So we may get to a point where, okay, I don't want to grow anymore today because I've grown enough for today, right? And that's okay. You don't have to grow in every moment. The big takeaway though is that when you recognize that you have the possibility, then you can choose it when it's relevant and of interest for you to do so. Yes, and with children, absolutely. And they're really great at helping us to continue our own exploration and to, kind of walk the talk. They're great accountability partners. And they get it, right? Because it's already they're made for it, right? So the question is, how can you preserve and reinforce that, and how it builds confidence and just opens up their future is incredible. So it's a huge gift to use it with our children.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so I have little girls, 9, 7, and 5. And of course, everyone's so unique and different. But I would say my 5-year-old, having 2 older sisters, my 5-year-old, she's the most like hesitant and the most like she doesn't want to try new things because she's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. So of course, besides saying stuff like mistakes are good, we learn, blah, 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 is there another, maybe those are the right things to say? What's
Yeah.
a little tag, a little sentence that I can always just nourish her over,
Yes.
bless her over, to be like, hey, no problem. Mistakes. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, so, and it's not mistakes for the sake of making mistakes as much as it's promoting the curiosity and the willingness to keep experimenting and exploring forward, even if the result isn't what's expected. So lots of times, like with my kids, it's like, whoops, I made a mistake. There was actually Lori Berkner, I think is her name. And we used to have a CD, and she has an "Oops, I Made a Mistake" song. And so it's like, what do you do when you make a mistake? Do you belly ache? And it goes through like all these things, and then it's like, hey, but you made a mistake, it's no big deal. And so we would use bits and pieces of that song. So you can look up Lori Berkner, making it fun. But then also, instead of like focusing on it as a mistake, like I actually wonder, can we even just let go of that word and look at it as like, yay, you learned something. Okay, so what did we learn right there? And our kids are constantly looking at our facial expressions. They're constantly looking at our micro movements. They're constantly judging what the deal is based on how we are responding. And so if we can celebrate and help them tease out the learning in the different situations, they're going to start to think in that way. They're going to start having that pathway, and they're going to start they're going to just naturally frame situations in that way, right? And there's a distinction also that I use a lot with the kids. So an interesting thing about our physiology is that excitement and fear, they are physiologically, and in terms of sensation, they are pretty identical. Okay. The only thing that differs is the meaning that we give it, right? I'm about to go onto a roller coaster. I'm so excited. And I feel a certain way. That's a positive, like, yay. Or, oh my gosh, I'm going to go and I'm going to speak in front of my class, and I don't know how that's going to go. And I'm feeling the same thing, but I tell myself I'm scared, and I start going into, whatever, the mental thoughts are that accompany that. So teaching the difference between fear and excitement, in terms of like, oh, mommy, I'm scared. Okay, are you? Is it possible that you're excited? Helping them to also recognize that the way that they interpret what's going on and what's going on in the world, that they can actually have a choice of what it means. So that can be a big thing too, because like the whole mistake thing, if, you know, it all goes down to like fear of belonging, right? Or fear of getting in trouble, or fear of not being good at, right? Like it always kind of boils down into some sort of fear. So helping them to see that they're safe, and that they can get back up and try again. That's another big piece too, right? And so encouraging them to try something and letting them know they may not get it right the first time, the second time, the third time. It may take them years. And why are they doing it? Do they love it? Do they enjoy the activity? Because if not, maybe they want to choose something else, and maybe that's okay, right? So is that helpful at all?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Focusing on exploring, playing, the learning part. And then I
Yes.
like the distinction, yeah, about the fear and excitement, getting to know their own little body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how we create the meaning. And just celebrate it, like, yay, you learned something, right? If they're like, oh, I made a mistake. Oh, you learned something. How else do you want to do it? How could you do it differently? Right? Or, oh, and they get older. Oh, I got this grade on this test. Okay, great. Let's look at it. Okay, great. So, okay, this one. So let's see, what was it? Oh, okay. Well, now you know it for next time. Or, oh, I bombed this thing. I thought I was going to do great. I bombed this thing. And now, right, what do we want to do? We want to put it on ourselves. Like, I am this, I am that. No, you are you, and you bombed the test. All right. So next time, what do you want to do? Do you want to study differently? Do you want to study sooner? Do you want to study in a different way? Do you need help? What else? Let's explore the possibilities, right? So that's what I say. It's just, what else is possible is a huge question that I love to use, because that starts to open new doors of what else we can choose. And if they start that at an early age, that can be really, really valuable. Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks,
Right.
Rebecca. Thank
You're
you
so
so
welcome.
much. This has been such a learning experience in so many ways. And so if you want to get in touch with Rebecca, she's got her information right there on the screen. Definitely give her some feedback. This has been just so informative and inspiring. And I loved our breakout rooms too. That was really great. So next month, we're having our webinar on November 11th, normal time, 10 to 11:30 Pacific Standard Time. And we're going to have a panel of tools and tips for self-care during the holidays. And so we're going to have 4 coaches on the panel discussing how to help, how to do self-care during the crazy holiday season. And so we will send out that flyer. Look for it in your email. And yeah, we thank you all for coming today and taking this time to make yourself and your happiness and your self-care a priority today. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Good to see
Thank
you,
you.
Rebecca.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rebecca, very much.
Thank you so much.
Awesome
Thank you.
presentation.
This was a treat for sure.
Yes.